you, Chair, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I again congratulate the member for Neath for securing this important debate and leading it, because it matters so much to my farmers, and I rise on behalf of the 400+ farmers that are in Rutland, Melton, the Vale and the Harbour villages. People such as Ben Wiles, who's a fifth-generation farmer in Empingham, as well as all those in Stamford who reached out to me and asked me to speak today. At its best, the Grocery Supply Code of Practice should ensure a degree of stability in an industry that is by its nature is risk-facing and vulnerable to external shocks and price fluctuations. Sadly, as we all know, farmers have faced a number of recent shocks to their livelihoods, ranging from fertiliser and feed prices that rose after Putin's renewed illegal invasion of Ukraine, to flooding, cold weather damage, and of course the spread of avian flu over the last 2 years. Now, we all know that national food security is a government priority, yet all too often there seems to be a disconnect between the recognition of the importance of food and how it's produced and the reality where farmers are often left feeling that this rests solely upon their shoulders. So by supporting farmers, we need to make sure that we are speaking up for them and that we are helping them to do their job, not only feeding our nation, but conserving the precious character of our countryside. Now, when it comes to food and drink, very few can compete, I'm afraid, with Rutland and Melton, whether it be bison and lamb, chicken and eggs, dairy, elderflower, beef, sugar beet, crops, you name it, we have it. And of course, the infamous Stilton and Melton Mowbray pork pie. I considered pausing to allow the audience to provide that line, but I suspect we shall just move on swiftly. I would also like to give a specific shout out to the amazing Allerton project in Loddington, which I know the Minister went to visit, who lead a lot of the research into how we do sustainable farming. And what they are doing there is decades ahead of the country and is really leading the way. Now, farmers, as we know, although we may say otherwise sometimes, largely put their heads down, pull their socks up and crack on with producing the food that we need. When they speak, we need to listen, and this is one of those times. This petition is not asking for the world, and the requests it makes are balanced, fair, and in my view, and clearly those of so many others, worthy of adoption by the government. They also reflect the requests that so many of us have made since we came to this place. So I fully support the three asks. One, that suppliers should buy what they have agreed to buy, suppliers should pay what they've agreed to pay, and that the Grocery Supply Code should ensure that they pay on time. It's really not that much to ask. The Grocery Supply Code is only applied to retailers with an annual turnover, for example, of £1 billion or more. These companies surely are more than capable of honouring the price that has been given, the amount bought, and the date of payment that's been agreed. Farmers have said time and time again that the balance of power is weighted towards large suppliers, leaving them underpaid, underinformed, and feeling undervalued. These three common-sense additions to the code go some way to evening the scales towards fairness. Now, we've seen this during the recent issue over the price of British sugar beet, and whilst the deal has finally been reached, it was disappointing that so many farmers, particularly in my constituency, faced uncertainty over what price they would get for their crop. Now, I know ministers were very active in helping to resolve the dispute, and I thank them for their efforts, but we need to bring the same energy to this issue. So it's therefore in that spirit of hope that I'm also calling for the lowering of the threshold for inclusion in the supply code to retailers, with a revenue of £500 million. This would spread the benefits of the code to many more farmers and provide a degree of economic certainty in these uncertain times. Now, we should acknowledge that these conversations we're having today are only possible because of the extra powers that we voted to give to ministers in the Agricultural Act of 2020. And I commend the government for its drive to clamp down on unfair practices in food supply chains. But we need to use these powers to go that bit further and demonstrate that we have a steadfast commitment to British farming by adopting the three simple asks in this petition. I would also like to take this opportunity to reiterate my ask for the establishment of a gas fertiliser price index. We need to ensure transparency and fairness in the index in the fertiliser market. We already have indexes for grain, other commodities such as and many other commodities. And a fertiliser index would bring clarity to a market that is currently opaque and prone to damaging fluctuations. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the government for announcing the biggest upgrade to UK farming schemes since we have left the EU. We're seeing an increase to rates for elms of 10%, which my farmers have raised with me and thanked with them. We've seen plans to improve food labelling to protect farmers better. We've seen far less paperwork, and I really am hearing that on my monthly visits to a farm in my constituency. And we're seeing enhanced payment for protecting our environment. So I thank the member for Neath again for leading this vital debate, and I thank the 286 people in Rutland and Melton and the 276 in Stamford and Grantham who signed this petition calling for reform to the Grocery Code. I hope this debate tells all of you that we have heard you, and I'm sure my honourable friend will show the government's willingness to help when he makes his comments, just as I will stand here today and reassure you that if you are a farmer in Rutland, Melton, the Vale, the Harbour villages and the Stamford villages, I, for one, will always stand on your side.